In this experiment, we aim to take a test case written in Markdown and automate it directly with the Chrome DevTools MCP. So my experiment is, can I just give Claude Code a test case document, connect to the DevTools MCP and have it run as an automated test? Let's see if we can achieve that. What we're going to use in this experiment is Claude Code for our AI coding agent. We're going to make sure we've got the Chrome DevTools MCP configured, installed and running, and then we're going to provide a test case which we actually created in experiment 1 and see if the DevTools MCP can automate that test case. So the process flow looks something like this. Take the test case in Markdown, prompt Claude Code. Claude Code calls the DevTools MCP, that interacts with Chrome and carries out the steps that are defined in the test case. So the first thing we want to do then is initialize Claude Code for this project and make sure we've got all of the artifacts that we need for the context that Claude Code is going to require. So I'll start Claude Code. You'll see in the file structure here that I've got the original test case from experiment 1, which basically defines some steps for interacting with our demo application, and we've got the test data, we've got the test steps. This was all created automatically from the video recording, and then I've got the test case creation principles and a test case template. Don't need those in this experiment, but it might be useful in the future for some degree of context. So the next thing I need to check then is the configuration and setup of the Chrome DevTools MCP. So first off, we need to get the Chrome DevTools MCP installed, so that you can find and download from GitHub, Chrome DevTools-MCP, but we need to install that first. And from here, you'll find the install package for NPM. It's this, and let NPM install that. And then whilst that's installing, the other bit we need to do to configure this for Claude Code is if you come into the Claude Code section, it's got Claude and we've got the command line here. We can copy that and that will add the Chrome DevTools MCP into Claude Code. So there we go, that's installed. Claude Code MCP add Chrome DevTools, and that will add to the file for the Claude Code configuration file. And if we come back to our Claude session, and from here we should be able to check this with /mcp, and it says it has Chrome DevTools installed and it is actually connected now. So if we escape from that and exit. Okay, and the next step then is to initialize the Claude Code project and just make sure it's familiar with the code base. So I can say, please review the files in this project. And then we'll just doubly make sure that Claude Code does have access to the MCP. And we'll paste in this command. Please check that you have access to the Chrome DevTools MCP. And we'll get Claude Code just to confirm which tools it's got access to. So what it's done is it's actually fired up an initial instance of Chrome just to make sure that it has got access to it and it can use it. So we should be able to see, check if DevTools, and this aligns perfectly with test automation projects. Getting a bit carried away there. I'm just going to paste that in there. Tell me which commands you have that you can use with the DevTools MCP. And it's telling me it's got access to things like list all the console messages, list network requests, take snapshot of the screen, drag, hover, fill forms, navigate to page. So it's got a whole range of tools it can use via this MCP. So I just want to prime it, tell it that it's an expert test automation engineer, and then explain that our goal is to take a test case documented in Markdown and run it directly as an automated test using the Chrome DevTools MCP. And that test case then is the one that we created in a previous experiment. And the only change I've made to this is I've actually put the URL in there in the preconditions. So the user's on the dashboard page, and that is the URL to the dashboard page. So we'll paste in the relative path to that test case, and we should be ready to go. So we have initialized Claude Code. We've created a copy of the test case, we've connected to the DevTools MCP, and we're just trying our initial prompt to see how well this is going to work first time round. So Claude Code reviews the test case. It's coming up with a to-do list to track the test execution. And what have we got? Verify the add button, fill, description, verify. Okay, and it has actually opened the web page in the background. It's gone straight to the right page. The question is whether or not it's going to click the button to add the new account. And there we go, it has clicked the button. So this is kind of phenomenal. We've gone from a standard human readable documented test case directly to automating that test case in a browser with no framework, no code, just directly via the Chrome DevTools MCP. Now, I'm not suggesting this is going to be a reliable approach to test automation, but the very fact that we can actually run this test, get all of the log files, work out what all of the requirements are to interact with the web page, and then use that potentially in downstream test automation frameworks and test code to maybe automatically write the test code for a more deterministic approach that uses Playwright or some other tool. But that is pretty phenomenal. We've got navigate to the page, verify preconditions, click the add button, verify. It has followed all of the steps that we documented in our test steps. And that final bit is it's taking a screenshot. No error gets encountered from the log files from the DevTools. Form validation pass, UI responded, data persistent confirmed. That is phenomenal. In fact, quite scary because it's completed the test, it's added the main investment account, got the value in there, and I've literally gone from test case to automated test in a matter of minutes. So the next step then would be to review and verify our results. So one of the things I am keen to see here is just how much resources and how much in terms of tokens this does consume. So I've set up a tool called CC Usage, which shows you the live token usage of Claude Code. And at the moment we're projecting that we're within our limits and our usage and our burn rate is normal. And I'm just going to run that test again. Let's see what model we've got. And we're on the default Sonnet 4.5. And if we just run that test again, and let's see what that usage goes up to. So currently we're at 1.9%, and in this session we're on 23%. So let's see how much of this session's allocated token usage we're going to consume with one test. Certainly looks like it's running quicker the second time round when it's already got some context about the test case. And let's see what we've got here. So that's used up so far another 1% of my token usage. It's completed the second test run successfully. And yeah, so we've used 1 or 2%. So that's not going to give us much scope for a 3-hour session where we've probably only got capability to run 60, 70 tests maybe. So it's probably going to chew up in some larger test cases quite a significant amount of tokens. But with a lower spec model, a bit more tweaking of the scenarios, that provides quite a phenomenal way to go from test case directly to an automated test. So if I was going to take this experiment any further and productionize it, again, I'd look to turn this into a command prompt. And again, I'd probably go to Claude and say, please guide me on how to take the lessons learnt from this session and create a Claude Code /command. And then as well as our command from experiment 1 for creating test cases, we've got a second command that we could use to actually run an automated test. Now, I'm not suggesting this is going to work in a production environment consistently, or it's going to be anywhere near ready to fold into a pipeline for execution with all the reporting and test data requirements that always complicate things, but this has clearly got a lot of potential for simplifying test automation, at least within Chrome. In the commands, what we've got: automation expert, execute test case provided following these guidelines, read the markdown preconditions, executes systematically, navigates, even saying which tools it needs to use from the MCP, verify the content, take screenshots, always take a fresh snapshot before interacting, and the execution flow, and a degree of reporting and error handling in there as well. And now it's suggesting that it wants a file to convert test to YAML. I'm not sure what that's about, but let's have a look. Convert test to YAML. You're an expert at test automation here. Test case in structured YAML, specifications for deterministic execution. Okay, so I ran this previously as a trial run, and one of the things that I was really curious about was how to turn this agentic approach, where we're just using Chrome DevTools direct from a thing, and I started discussing about how we'd make this more deterministic, and I think Claude has picked up on that document that we were looking at, and it is already heading off trying to work out ways of turning this approach into a more deterministic approach. And what it's suggesting is that it takes the test case, converts that test case into YAML, and then it's probably, I think, is looking at using that YAML to create a framework. This is going way off track, but the scope here is quite mind-blowing. More to come on this sort of test, I think, and this sort of experiment. So we are at step 6, where we've turned it into command. I think there are some lessons to be learnt from this. I mean, it's worked really smoothly, and it's gone way further ahead than I expected it to, but there's some real potential with this. So the results then, well, that was really easy to get working once the MCP was set up and running. Had no problems interacting with the application whatsoever. You might have trouble if you've got logons and two-factor authentication, but in principle worked really well, and it appeared to follow the steps reliably. On the not so good side of things, I'm not sure if it would perform reliably if you're repeating it day in, day out, but we could test that and check that, and we could certainly put some rules in and some memory in there to help ensure more reliability. So overall, I'd use this tomorrow. We'll use this tomorrow. I think it's going to be a great tool to enable us to work out how to interact with applications and find out a way to automate more difficult applications. That's a test I'd like to try out and experiment with in a future one of these sessions. And if you're interested in finding out more, then look at the Chrome DevTools MCP on GitHub, which you'll find at GitHub, Chrome DevTools MCP. That's it for this session. Next experiment, I'm probably thinking we might work out a way to turn these into scripts and see what Claude Code was trying to come up with for a deterministic approach using YAML.